Okay, so what we've now got to start doing is building a framework, building a model. And that, of course, means we're going to start drawing some graphs. So what we're saying is we want to look at what happens to output as we add our variable factor. So we have so far introduced two concepts. One is the extra output that a worker adds. So workers are increasing 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Output is increasing 10, 25, 45, 55, 57, 52. It's just the same as we talked about in the last video. And then we've got this extra output. Yeah, so the extra output from an extra worker, so how much do they add? We gave that a name, and the extra output from an extra worker we're calling marginal product. And what we said is that initially our marginal product is rising. That was when we had our teamwork, or division of labour. Each worker was able to add more than the one before. Then, after a bit, what starts to happen is that the fixed factor, FF, gets overused. We get diminishing returns, until finally we get this. It gets totally overused, and we get negative returns to the variable factor. So there we had, up to there we had increasing returns to the variable factor, then we had diminishing returns to the variable factor, and there we had negative returns to the variable factor. So let's look at how this is going to work. So what we're going to say is here we're going to put quantity of labour, but all I mean by that is workers, of course. There's nothing complicated going on here. And this is stuff, how much they're producing, which we can call output. What I'm going to show to start with is marginal product, because a firm's going to be interested in its marginal product. What I'm going to do is I'm going to employ an extra worker. I want to know how much difference are they going to make. This is clearly going to be an important concept for any business. If I employ you, what are you going to give me? How much stuff are you going to produce? And obviously I'm going to be interested in the money as well, but here we're just looking at the physical relationship. There is nothing about costs or money here. We're literally saying, if I employ you, how many extra units are you going to make? And all we can see is that when we employ our first worker, we get an extra 10 plus 10. When we employ a second worker, we get an extra 15. When we employ a third worker, we get an extra 20. When we employ a fourth worker, we now only get an extra 10. When we employ a fifth worker, we only get an extra 2. And when we employ a sixth worker, we actually get, down here, minus 5 down there. So our marginal product, if we were to join these up, we would have what's called a marginal product curve. And it shows, missed. It shows how much is produced by an extra worker, the change in output, the change in total output from one extra worker. If I now make that slightly smoother, then we can then examine, we can then show the concepts that we've so far looked at. And what we said is, again, that's the quantity of labour, that's output or just stuff. We said that marginal product, there's our first worker, marginal product is going to look like that then, like we just examined. Up until here, each worker adds more than one before. We have increasing returns to the variable factor because each worker is adding more than the one before up to Q1. Up until Q2, we have diminishing returns. So is that going to run out of space? Come back. Diminishing returns. To the variable factor. We're overusing our fixed factor. We might still employ these people. They're still adding, remember. If they're digging up diamonds or something and we're not paying them very much, then we'd probably employ all of them. But they're adding less than the one before. But the ones ones we would never employ, are the ones after this point, where that's marginal, MPL, the marginal product of labour, or just marginal product. Beyond this point, we have negative returns. We have negative returns to the variable factor. Adding an extra worker reduces our total output. So here, great teamwork. Each one's more efficient than the one before. Here, each one's less efficient than the one before, but they're still adding. Here, an extra worker reduces your total output, and you would never employ beyond that point. In our example, the first 3 workers added more than the one before. The next 2 workers, so that would be up to 5, added less than the one before. And the 6th one, once you get past 5, we have negative returns and they're reducing total output.